Hi class, it's Jamie Batts, your instructor for AMP2. We're going to continue on with our lecture on the metabolism chapter. We were just talking about protein catabolism and amino acid catabolism and how that can be a little tricky with the creation of urea from ammonia, a toxic byproduct of deamination. We're going to start talking about something totally different. It's not totally different, but it's not along the lines necessarily of nutrient absorption or digestion. So this is introducing the concept that our body is in a constant state of either absorption or starvation. So this means that our body is actively either absorbing nutrients from food that we've ingested, or it's waiting around for more nutrients to come in. So we call it the absorptive state or the post-absorptive state. The absorptive state is when your body is actually pulling nutrients in from the intestinal tract. The post-absorptive state is when it's not, and you're either preparing to eat again, or you're starting to get hungry because you do need to eat again. Maybe that's you right now. I mean, I just ate my lunch. What kind of? I have a salad that I'm munching on as I'm making these videos. I'm so professional. So let's talk about the differences between these states and kind of what is the ins and outs of each of them. So the absorptive state, after a meal, absorption's occurring. This is typically going to last about 4 hours. So pretty much your food comes in, goes in the stomach, sits there for a few hours, and then it goes into the duodenum where a lot of the mixing and churning and absorption occurs. Glucose uptake's happening. Glycogenesis is happening as your blood sugar spikes and your liver and skeletal muscles are pulling glucose in to make glycogen. Amino acid uptake is happening. Protein synthesis is occurring. Your cells are pulling those amino acids in and making all the proteins that they need. Other hormones can be used as well. Growth hormone, androgens, estrogens, all can be utilized in this process. And triglycerides can be made as well. If you have an excess of blood sugar and an excess of fatty acids coming in, your adipocytes are going to start sucking up all of those free fatty acids and converting them into triglycerides for storage. ATP production is sufficient at this point, making lipids, making proteins, all cellular activities, basically all systems are go. Your body's nice and happy during this absorptive state. So this next slide shows you kind of all the action, right? What's going on in the absorptive state? You have lipid blood levels, elevated blood levels, so your cells are going to suck up those fatty acids, convert them to triglycerides. Insulin's going to play a role in pulling blood glucose that's in our blood into the cells, either converting it into glycogen or using it to create pyruvate and acetyl-CoA, therefore ATP. Same thing with proteins. Blood amino acid levels might be elevated during this time. So you're pulling them in and either making useful proteins or storing them for later. So absorptive state, insulin stimulating glucose uptake into the cells and glycogenesis, making of glycogen, is also stimulating amino acid uptake, protein synthesis, and triglyceride synthesis. Androgens and estrogens and growth hormone are going to stimulate protein synthesis as well, and glycolysis and aerobic metabolism are going to be brought in as well to, or utilized as well to create more ATP for all of our cellular activities and making the lipids, making the proteins, and all of those things that's happening. So that's all during the absorptive state. During the post-absorptive state, this is when nutrient absorption is not occurring. So this is when we're relying on our internal energy reserves. Metabolic activity is focused on getting those energy reserves up and usable and maintaining blood glucose levels. Because remember, our blood glucose levels have to be maintained because our brain only uses glucose. We need to keep glucose going to the brain. This is all coordinated by glucagon, epinephrine, glucocorticoids, and growth hormones. So during this post-absorptive state, our blood lipid levels, say that 10 times fast, decrease, right? And so the response is to release fatty acids from our adipocytes. So we're actually pulling fatty acids off of our adipocytes and using them in our blood to go to necessary cells. Blood amino acids are going to decrease. And so our liver is going to release amino acids into the blood. Blood glucose levels decrease. So glucose is going to be released by the liver. Overall catabolism of lipids and amino acids are going to produce acetyl-CoA. This is going to form what's called a ketone body. Ketone bodies will diffuse into the blood and they're used by other cells as an energy source. So let's take a look at this. This is the opposite. So remember in the last slide, all of the arrows were going in, the cell was stashing away all of this stuff for later. Well, now all of the arrows are coming down from triglycerides, glycogen, and proteins. They're being broken down depending on what's available and what's around, still creating ATP as long as oxygen's present through a citric acid cycle electron transport chain, trying to get glucose back into the blood, trying to get amino acids back into the blood, trying to get fatty acids back into the blood. There's lots of hormones involved here. Ultimately, when the liver is breaking down lipids and amino acids, the amount of acetyl-CoA increases because remember, you're doing beta oxidation, which is producing a large amount of acetyl-CoA, and it's a slow process. So as that acetyl-CoA accumulates, we're going to create ketone bodies as a result. It's basically a conglomeration of acetyl-CoA. They go out into the blood and can be used as an energy source as well. Glucocorticoids stimulate lipid protein reserves. This can be enhanced by growth hormone, glucagon rather, stimulates glycogenolysis, gluconeogenesis, which is mostly happening in the liver. And epinephrine is an important hormone / neurotransmitter that's important in stimulating all of these glycogenolysis in our skeletal, cardiac muscle, and adipocytes. Sorry, I felt like I had a sneeze. You can pause the video here, go back and review this section on post-absorptive and absorptive states. We're going to move through and talk a little bit about nutrition. Speaking of which, I'm drinking some water. So nutrition, obviously, this is all the absorption of nutrients from the food that we put into our body. We have mostly vitamins and minerals other than the organic substances that we've been talking about, the proteins, lipids, and carbohydrates. Vitamins are organic compounds that they're required in very small quantities, micro quantities, but they're essential for our metabolic needs. There's two classes of vitamins. They can be fat-soluble or water-soluble. Fat-soluble vitamins are A, D, E, and K. Water-soluble vitamins are the B and C vitamins. Minerals are inorganic substances, and they serve as electrolytes in our body fluids. So let's talk about fat-soluble vitamins first. Fat-soluble vitamins are primarily absorbed directly through the digestive tract along with lipid micelles. So they're kind of grouped into those lipids when they're absorbed. How do we get vitamins, lipid-soluble vitamins A, E, and K? Well, you get them mostly from vegetables, like leafy greens a lot of the time. Actually, yeah, broccoli, spinach, all of that stuff. Vitamin A is in orange vegetables like carrots and sweet potatoes. Vitamin D3 is actually produced by the sun. You probably know that already, just from being exposed to sunlight. About 20 minutes of sunlight exposure a day on 30% or more of your body's surface. So just going outside with like a short sleeve shirt on or a tank top is going to get you your vitamin D3 for the day. And vitamin K is actually produced by your intestinal bacteria, which is why infants are generally injected with vitamin K as soon as they're born. Vitamin K is a vitamin that helps with blood clotting, if you remember from the very beginning of this semester. And therefore, since newborns do not have all of their normal digestive flora and fauna as soon as they're born, they're injected with vitamin K just in case there's any bleeding going on post-birth, because birth can be a little bit traumatic, right? Your fat-soluble vitamins can also be stored. This gives your body reserves of these fat-soluble vitamins. Normal metabolic activities can continue for months without dietary sources of vitamins A, D, E, and K. So you can suffer from hypovitaminosis. This would be a deficiency. This rarely occurs with fat-soluble vitamins except for vitamin D, which is used a lot in our body, and unfortunately many of us who have desk jobs or who don't go outside as much as we should and get some exercise, you may have a deficiency of vitamin D. People who have darker skin are also more susceptible to vitamin D deficiency. Hypervitaminosis would be when you have too much. It can be potentially harmful, especially in these fat-soluble stores. So when your dietary intake exceeds the vitamin's ability to store or be utilized or excreted, your body can develop toxicities to these vitamins, be very harmful. So this is a table that summarizes the effects and significance, what they're used for, and the sources of these vitamins. You need to be familiar with all of these except the RDA. not as necessary. It's on the back of every bottle, right? You know what you need as long as you read nutrition labels. Let's talk about water-soluble vitamins. These are the most of these are coenzymes or parts of coenzymes. So thinking about all of those cytochromes and enzymes that are in the sub-steps of glycolysis and citric acid cycle, they're all part of water-soluble vitamins. Coenzyme A, right? All of those little things that we learned about along the way, all parts of water-soluble vitamins. So B vitamins, naturally found in meat, eggs, and dairy products. Vitamin C is in citrus fruits. They're rapidly exchanged in our digestive tract and our blood because they're water soluble. They dissolve easily, so they're easy to transport. Excess amounts are just excreted in the urine. Hypervitaminosis is rarely occurring with these water soluble compounds unless you have some type of megadose coming in. They're usually just pee them out. So if you do have too much, you'll notice when you go to the bathroom, your pee will be bright yellow, like neon-ish. Especially from vitamin C. Most water-soluble vitamins are not stored in the body because we just excrete them in the urine. B12 can be an exception. That vitamin C is stored in some cases as well. All but one are absorbed very easily across the intestinal epithelium. B12 has to bind to the intrinsic factor. Remember, intrinsic factor is made in the stomach. And if the intrinsic factor is not present, if you have some type of stomach ulcer or some type of digestive issue going on with your stomach, it may impact the creation of intrinsic factor, which will then impact the absorption of B12. So insufficient intake can lead to symptoms of vitamin deficiencies. Intestinal bacteria produce very small amounts of B vitamins as well. There's a summary. Do you have to know them? Yeah. I mean, for the most part, as long as you know they're coenzymes, it's really all you need to know. Look, go down that list. Component or precursor, they're all coenzymes. They're all helpful in metabolism. That's all you need to know about them. You should know the sources. You should be familiar with that just for general knowledge. And then effects of deficiencies and excess. Overall, it's not good to have too much. It's not good to have too little. You can pause the video here, go back and review this section. We're going to talk about having a balanced diet. This should be mostly review. I think most of you have taken nutrition. Balanced diet contains all the ingredients for maintaining homeostasis. So this would include all the substrates for ATP production, all the essential amino acids and fatty acids, vitamins, minerals, electrolytes, as well as water. Malnutrition would be that unhealthy state from inadequate or excessive nutrient absorption. So either not having enough or having too much can still lead to malnutrition. MyPlate.gov, ChooseMyPlate.gov, is a website that shows you, instead of the pyramid, which can be a little misleading and confusing because you're thinking, oh, I had 2 servings of fruit. Was that 1 serving of fruit? I can't remember. The MyPlate concept is just showing you what a typical plate for each meal should look like. Roughly 50% of your plate should be fruits and vegetables. So that is what it looks like. You can go to the website and check it out. You can also edit the website if you're an athlete, if you have nutritional issues, like maybe you have celiac disease, or maybe you are lactose intolerant or things like that. They will edit and kind of amend your nutritional chart based on your own dietary needs. So it's kind of a cool thing. But notice about half of your plate at every meal should be fruits and vegetables. Think about it. I'm eating a salad for lunch. My salad is all vegetables. And I'm not going to lie, I threw a couple chips in there because I like it crunchy. But that's my grains. I need it. I really shouldn't. Anyways, you should know the limits on fats, sugars, and salt or sodium intake. Get most of the fat from your diet from fish and nuts and healthy sources like vegetable oils. They're key sources of essential fatty acids, those omega-3s and omega-6s. Limit solid fats like butter, animal fats that have high cholesterol and saturated fats. Check the nutrition labels for facts about the fats. Trans fats, as well as sodium levels. Choose foods and beverages that are low on added sugars, including alcohol. That's why you should just drink water, or if you need to drink coffee, drink it black. Don't add sugar to it, or tea without the sugar. Or if you drink alcohol, obviously limit it in moderation. You also have to find a nice balance between the food you bring in and your physical activity. To stay within your daily calorie needs, your calories in, calories out should be about the same. Adults should be physically active for at least 30 minutes on most days of the week. They recommend 4 to 6 days of the week, 30 minutes. 60 minutes a day of physical activity would be needed to prevent weight gain. And in order to lose weight, you may need to work out 60 to 90 minutes a day. It depends on what you're doing as well as what you're eating, because it ultimately comes down to how many calories you're putting into your body and how many calories you're using. Children and teenagers should be physically active for at least 60 minutes a day. I know my son, who is in kindergarten right now, he only has gym 3 times a week, and the majority of his gym time is not running around, unfortunately. So they do, sometimes they do worksheets and things like that. It's not the teacher's fault, I know that. But gym nowadays is not what it used to be. So children do need to, it's my own little PSA for the day. Children need to get outside, run around a little bit more than we do, but we need to do it too, right? So the 5 basic food groups, this is general knowledge. At this point, you should know the 5 basic food groups: grains, vegetables, fruits, dairy, and meats/beans, right? You don't need to eat meat to have a healthy diet. This is just an overview on what they provide and what we get from them, the benefits from them. Again, this should be review for. I'll leave it up here so you can pause the video if you want, but I'm not going to read it to you because I kind of expect you to know this stuff already. I don't know. Maybe my expectations are too high as usual. Let's talk about the energy content in our food. The energy is measured in a term called a calorie. A calorie, as we know it, though, is actually a kilocalorie, which is 1,000 calories. That is the actual measurement that we read on our nutrition labels and we think about when we think about our metabolism. 1 calorie, in our terms, is actually the energy that it takes to raise a kilogram of water by 1 degrees Celsius. It's a unit of energy, so it's a lot of energy in 1 calorie. Not all of our foods have the same calorie content, right? Carbohydrates have a much lower calorie per gram value than, say, lipids. Lipids have almost 9.5 calories per gram. That makes sense, right? Because of those fatty acid chains yielding lots of acetyl-CoA to give us lots and lots of ATP. The average adult needs somewhere between 2,000 and 3,000 calories a day. Holy moly, I think that's a lot. I'm going to say the average adult needs around 2,000 calories a day. Obviously, the larger person you are, if you're a tall person, if you have a larger stature, you just have broad bones, right? Big bones, so to speak, you're going to burn more calories than a smaller person because it takes more energy to move a bigger person than it takes to move a small person. I'm not being offensive. That's factual, right? So the smaller you are, the less calories you burn. The bigger you are, the more calories you burn. But if you don't want to keep gaining weight, then you need to keep your calorie count down and your activity level up. Again, it's calories in, calories out. It's not about avoiding carbs or avoiding fats or, drinking protein shakes or whatever. It really comes down to how much calories you're putting into your body and how many calories you're using in a given day. This just gives you an idea of how many calories are in each thing. For instance, a breakfast bar, 368 calories. I don't know what kind of breakfast bar they're measuring there. I was just looking actually upstairs. I have those, they're Cliff bars. They're like all natural and supposed to be really good for you. 210 calories in one of those. No thanks. I will give them to my kids. I'm not going to waste 200 calories on one little bar. It doesn't even fill me up. Maybe that's just me being calorie stingy, but it's true. But look, for instance, at half a tablespoon of butter is 51 calories. So think about that. The next time you put butter on something, you're probably using more than half a tablespoon, and therefore you're getting just a couple hundred calories just from the butter that you're putting on your toast or in your mac and cheese or on your steak or whatever. Beer, 160 calories for a 12 ounce. Cola or soda, who calls it cola? 140 calories. So interesting. High carb items like rice and bread obviously have higher calorie content than other nutrient dense foods, which I used to teach nutrition. I could get all into the nutritional aspect, but let's stay on topic here. Let's talk about complete versus incomplete proteins. That's really arguments for being anti-vegetarian or anti-vegan, you're not getting your complete proteins. Well, you can, even if you're a vegan or vegetarian. Complete proteins are proteins that provide all essential amino acids in sufficient quantities. So you typically have to get this from beef, fish, poultry, right? Animal products, which vegetarians and vegans don't eat. Incomplete proteins provide adequate amount of protein, but they can lack essential amino acids. So you have to combine them together to create complete proteins. So vegetarians and vegans just have to make sure they're eating a wide variety of vegetables and fruits and beans and legumes and things like that to create a balanced diet. I'm going to stop the video here so you have a chance to go back and review all of the information that we covered about diet and nutrition. Have a good day.